Okay, so picture this. You've booked that amazing cruise, the one turquoise waters, endless buffets, maybe even a dolphin sighting or two. But
Yeah.
there's a side to cruising nobody really wants to think about, and that's that
Right.
kind of dreaded gastrointestinal outbreaks.
Yeah, the kind that turn a luxury liner into like a floating petri dish.
Exactly.
Well, the CDC just released data showing 2024 was like a banner year for these outbreaks, the worst we've seen in over a decade.
Wow. Yeah, that's got to be a PR nightmare for the cruise lines. But why are these outbreaks so common on these ships? Is it just bad luck, or is there something more going on?
It's more about like the perfect storm of conditions. You've got thousands of people all packed together, sharing everything from restrooms to buffets,
Right.
and then you throw in a highly contagious villain like norovirus.
Norovirus, the cruise ship contagion boogeyman.
Uh,
I've heard the whispers, but remind me what makes it such a pain.
well, it spreads like wildfire. Just a few viral particles can take you down, and once someone is infected, they're shedding billions of these particles,
Nope.
which can survive on surfaces for days. So think handrails, elevator buttons, even that tempting midnight buffet.
Okay, that's making me a little queasy. But hold on, if it's that contagious, why aren't we seeing these massive outbreaks on land all the time?
We do. Norovirus is everywhere, but think about it. If you get sick at home, you're probably not calling the CDC, right?
Right.
On a ship, though, every case is reported, and that makes it seem like there's way more. Plus, that strict reporting helps trace outbreaks back to their source.
So it's not that the ships are necessarily dirtier, just that they're under a microscope. But
Exactly.
knowing it only takes a microscopic few particles to cause chaos, shouldn't we be seeing more like cutting-edge prevention methods on the ships?
Well, here's where it gets interesting. The cruise industry is actually investing heavily in new technologies for this.
Okay.
Some lines are even experimenting with ultraviolet light disinfection systems that can zap those norovirus particles on surfaces.
So like a high-tech bug zapper for cruise ships.
Pretty much.
That's pretty cool. What other weapons are in the arsenal against this enemy?
Absolutely. Researchers are also working on norovirus vaccines, although that's a bit further down the line.
Right.
But it's a good sign that they're taking this seriously and trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, that makes sense considering what's at stake. But even with these advancements, norovirus is still the king of the cruise ship outbreaks, right? What about those other stomach bugs we hear about?
You're right, norovirus is the headliner, but it's not the only act in town. The CDC data highlights outbreaks caused by salmonella and E. coli as well.
Okay.
Now, those tend to be linked to contaminated food or water, whereas norovirus spreads more through person-to-person contact.
So different villains, different attack strategies. But knowing all of this, is there anything we can do to protect ourselves short of wearing a hazmat suit on board?
Well, while hazmat suit might raise some eyebrows, there are some surprisingly effective strategies you can use to minimize your risk, and they're probably things you already know, but sometimes a reminder is helpful.
Well, in that case, wait, I'm all ears, and I'm sure our listeners are too.
Well, the biggest thing is hand washing. I know it sounds basic,
Right.
but you'd be surprised how many people skip this crucial step. And I'm not talking a quick rinse here.
Yeah.
We're talking a full 20-second scrub with soap and water, especially before eating and after using the restroom.
Okay, 20 seconds, got it. I'll admit I'm sometimes guilty of the old splash and dash, but I'm definitely rethinking that now as hand sanitizer, like a good backup.
It's better than nothing, but here's a little known fact. Norovirus is pretty resistant to alcohol-based sanitizers. So
Okay.
soap and water are really your best bet to break down that viral armor.
Interesting. So scrubbing up like a surgeon before hitting the buffet, what else can we do?
Another tip is to be mindful of what you're touching. Those high traffic areas like handrails and elevator buttons are a breeding ground for germs. I always carry a small pack of disinfectant wipes and give those surfaces a quick once over
Smart.
before touching them.
Okay, I'm seeing a theme here. Vigilance is key. But let's be real, even if you're super careful, isn't it almost impossible to completely avoid exposure on a cruise ship?
You're right, there's always some level of risk. But think of it this way. You can significantly reduce your chances of getting sick just by taking these simple precautions.
Right.
It's about stacking the odds in your favor.
That makes sense. So it's not about living in fear. It's about being smart and proactive. But I'm curious, with all this talk about outbreaks, are there any cruise lines that have a better track record than others when it comes to sanitation?
That's a tricky question. The CDC doesn't release data on specific cruise lines, so it's hard to make those direct comparisons.
So no official cleanest cruise line award.
Not exactly.
I guess it makes sense protecting those industry secrets.
Right, but what you can do is look for cruise lines that are transparent about their sanitation practices.
Hmm.
Check their websites, read reviews from other passengers, and see if they highlight any specific initiatives they're taking to prevent outbreaks.
So do your research and look for those clues. Smart move. But even with the best hygiene practices, there's always that element of chance, right? You could be on the cleanest ship in the world and still end up next to someone shedding norovirus particles like confetti.
Unfortunately, that's the reality, and it speaks to a broader point. Personal responsibility plays a huge role if you're feeling even slightly unwell. It's best to just stay in your cabin and contact the medical staff.
Yeah, that's definitely not the time to tough it out and try to enjoy the pool deck. It's about protecting yourself and everyone else on board. Speaking of the bigger picture, I've got to ask, with the cruise industry booming, bigger ships, more passengers, do you think we're going to see even more of these outbreaks in the future?
It's definitely a concern as we pack more people into these floating cities. The potential for transmission increases. But here's the silver lining. Awareness is growing.
Okay.
Both cruise lines and passengers are becoming more proactive about prevention, and that shift in mindset could make a big difference.
So it's a bit of a race against time innovation, trying to keep pace with the industry's growth. But is there a tipping point? Will there be a time when the megaships are just too big to manage from a public health perspective?
That's a question that keeps epidemiologists up at night.
Yeah.
It's a complex equation with lots of variables, but here's a fascinating development. Some researchers are looking at AI and predictive modeling to identify potential outbreak hotspots on ships.
Whoa, that's next level stuff.
Yeah.
So using data to anticipate where those pesky viruses might strike next.
Exactly. Imagine being able to pinpoint high-risk areas like buffets or theaters and ramp up sanitation before an outbreak even happens. That's the future of outbreak prevention.
That's incredible. So it's not just about soap and water anymore, but about using data and technology to outsmart these microscopic enemies. It sounds like the cruise industry is taking this seriously. But are there any regulations in place to make sure that all ships are meeting certain hygiene standards?
You're hitting on a crucial point. Accountability. The CDC has something called the Vessel Sanitation Program, or VSP, which inspects cruise ships that embark and disembark in U.S. ports. They have a pretty rigorous checklist covering everything from food handling to water quality.
So like a health and safety report card for cruise ships. Do they make those inspection scores public?
That's a question I get asked a lot, and it's a bit of a gray area. The CDC does publish some general information about the VSP, but those actual inspection scores aren't really available to the public.
That's interesting. So a bit of a lack of transparency there. I guess it's understandable from the cruise line's perspective, but it would be great to have that information when we're booking a trip.
I agree. More transparency would definitely empower passengers to make informed choices.
Yeah.
But here's the good news. There are advocacy groups pushing for greater access to those inspection reports. So fingers crossed, we might see some progress on that front in the future.
I hope so. It would be a game changer for travelers. But in the meantime, it sounds like we're back to doing our own research and staying vigilant.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to navigating the world of cruising. And while there are inherent risks, as with any form of travel, there are also ways to minimize those risks and enjoy a healthy and memorable experience.
It's all about finding that balance between embracing adventure and being prepared for the unexpected. But I'm curious, beyond the practical tips and precautions, what are some of the broader takeaways from all this?
Yeah.
What can we learn from the cruise industry's ongoing battle with these outbreaks?
That's a great question. I think it highlights the interconnectedness of everything. We live in a globalized world where travel is easier than ever, but that also means that diseases can spread more rapidly.
It's like that butterfly effect. But with viruses, a sneeze in one corner of the world can ripple out and impact a cruise ship thousands of miles away.
Precisely, and it underscores the importance of global health cooperation and preparedness. We can't just focus on what's happening in our own backyard. We need to be aware of and address health threats on a global scale.
So it's not just about protecting ourselves, but about working together to create a healthier and safer world for everyone. And that's a message that goes far beyond the cruise industry.
Absolutely. It's relevant to all aspects of our lives, from the way we travel to the way we interact with each other in our daily lives.
It's a reminder that we're all in this together, literally.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a powerful realization, and one that can hopefully lead to positive change.
And with that thought-provoking message, I think we've sailed into some pretty deep waters today. We've explored the fascinating world of cruise ship outbreaks, uncovered the secrets of norovirus, and discussed the importance of personal responsibility and global health awareness.
It's been a great discussion, and I hope our listeners feel empowered to make informed choices about their travel plans and their overall health.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember? It's amazing how something so tiny like a virus can have such a huge impact on something as massive as the cruise industry. It really puts things in perspective.
Yeah, it's a constant reminder that even with all of our technology and advancements, we're still at the mercy of nature. These microbes have been around for millions of years, evolving and adapting.
Right.
They're not going away anytime soon.
It makes you wonder, though, with all the focus on prevention, are we making any progress when it comes to actually treating norovirus? I mean, aside from the classic advice of rest and fluids, is there anything on the horizon that could offer some relief?
Well, that's a question scientists are tackling head on. And while there's no magic cure yet, there has been some promising research into antiviral drugs that could shorten the duration and severity of norovirus.
So there's hope for a future where cruise ship flu doesn't automatically mean a week of misery in your cabin.
Exactly.
That's encouraging.
It is, and it's not just about treatment. Researchers are also exploring ways to boost our immune response to norovirus, which could be a game changer in terms of long-term prevention.
That would be incredible. Imagine a world where you could board a cruise ship with confidence, knowing that even if you encounter norovirus, your body is ready to fight it off. It would revolutionize the industry.
It would, and it's not just about cruising. These advancements could have ripple effects across all areas of public health, helping us combat norovirus outbreaks everywhere.
Right. It really highlights the fact that these health challenges are interconnected. What we learn from the cruise industry can inform how we address outbreaks in hospitals, schools, even our own home.
Exactly. It's a reminder that knowledge and innovation can transcend boundaries and have a positive impact on a global scale.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from the nitty-gritty of norovirus to the future of outbreak prevention. We've explored the challenges, the innovations, and the importance of collective responsibility.
Yeah, and hopefully we've armed our listeners with the knowledge they need to make informed choices about their health and well-being, whether they're planning a cruise or just navigating their daily lives.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to walk away with?
If there's one message I want to leave everyone with, it's this: don't let fear hold you back from experiencing the world, but do so with a healthy dose of awareness and preparedness. Take those simple precautions, stay informed, and remember that we all have a role to play in keeping ourselves and each other healthy.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this enlightening journey. And to our listeners, may your future travels be filled with adventure and good health.